So, should I buy a house now or should I wait for interest rates to come down? We're going to talk about that today, and we're going to sit at my kitchen table. I'm just going to tell it to you how I think it's going to happen based on just plain English. Are you ready? I think it all depends. How about that for a great answer? It all depends. If you're going to buy a house and you're just going to live there for 1 or 2 years, I'm going to tell you up front, regardless of interest rate, don't buy a house, because the cost of buying a house is more than just a down payment. You have to pay the fees when you go to buy the house, and you have to pay the fees when you go to sell it. And I don't think in 2 years your appreciation and the value of your house is going to go up enough for you to get all that money back. Go rent, find something a little cheaper and stick your money in some investments. And then when you get to a point where you're going to buy something and live there 3, 10, 15 years, buy a house then. But the question is right now, should you buy a house versus waiting for interest rates? Well, I tell you what, let's talk about what's happening here. First, interest rates. We all know interest rates are going to go down. And when I say we all know, you talk to mortgage companies, you talk to realtors, you talk to the people in the news, and they all talk about how the Fed rate is going to go down. And when that happens, your mortgage rate goes down. Well, right now, a lot of people have 3 and 4% interest rates on their mortgages, and they're not willing to move. And when the interest rates start coming down, they're going to start thinking to themselves, that's not 3%, but it's not 7.5%. We've been talking about moving. We just put it off. We've had an extra kid. We need an extra bedroom. We keep putting it off. Now that the interest rates are coming down, maybe it's time for us to put our house on the market and go look for something else. I think that's what's going to happen as interest rates come down. We know they're going to come down, but I also think people are going to start thinking about selling their home, and inventory is going to go up. But guess what's going to happen? As inventory goes up and interest rate drops, another rule kicks in. And I don't know if it's going to be 6 months or a year and a half, but once they really get down, and I think they'll get around to 5.5%, we're going to see prices start climbing again. That's what we saw during COVID, is as interest rates came way down to keep the economy going, housing just went crazy. Well, we kind of put the brakes on it for the last 2.5 years, and now the same thing is going to happen. And as inventory goes up and interest rates go down, prices are going to go up as well. I think that if you're going to buy a house in the next 2 years, now might be a really good time to do it, because you can buy a house at a cheaper price now than I think you're going to be able to do it in 2 years. Buy a house now at a higher interest rate and then refinance it later and reap the benefits of buying at a cheaper price now and a lower interest rate when they finally get here, and enjoy it all. There's 2 or 3 things that can happen with refinance. Number one, you can go just do a traditional refinance. It'll cost you a few $1,000s, but when you look and say, hey, how much is it going to save me a month? I'm going to make that back in 2 years, and I'm going to live here 10 years. Sure, I'll spend $3,000 or $4,000 for financing down to 5.5%. Why not? But there's another thing that could happen too. You could use the right lender. I'll tell you what, I'm working with a lender right now that if you work with them and they handle your mortgage, they will give you a 3-year guaranteed certificate that you will not have to pay any lender charges if you refinance with them. That's right. There are options out there where you can go borrow money today and refinance with no lender charges in the next 3 years if you use the same company. Pretty amazing, right? Now, I'm not telling you there won't be any costs. I'm just saying the lender costs, the costs that go with that. But that will greatly reduce your refinancing. So should you buy a house now? I think you should buy a house now if you want a house now. You know, the way you do this is you got to find an expert. Get a great agent and tell them you want a lender who's going to let you refi in the next 3 years down to the lower interest rate for minimal cost. It's a great game plan. It makes sense for everybody. Should I go buy a house right now? If you're going to live there 2 years, skip it. I don't think it's worth the cost. But if you're going to buy a house and live there for 5 or 7 years, I think now is the time to buy. There's not a lot of inventory, and what's out there, you just have to be really picky. You got to look at a lot of houses. But when you find the right house at the right money, I think you'll get a better deal today than you will a year from now. And the little bump in interest rate, hey, you can live with that for the next 18 months as long as you go with a lender who lets you refinance for free. All right, so now that you got your hands around whether you should buy now or later and what's going to happen with interest rates, you might want to take a look at my next video, which can help you avoid buying the wrong house. After all, you don't want to buy a house from the black box of death.